This is the S.J. Childs Show, hosted by S.J. Childs, streaming on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Find us on all social medias. The S.J. Childs Show, bringing value to families through education and resources. Check us out weekly, where we'll have new and exciting guests. Thanks so much for your support. Enjoy the show. This episode is brought to you by S.J. Childs Books for Children. Visit sjchilds.org today to check out their special needs book collection. Teach inclusion and neurodiversity in this special 7-book collection. Get yours today. Hi, and welcome to the S.J. Childs Show. I'm your host, S.J. Childs, and today we have a wonderful celebrity guest, Scott Steindorff. He is an international producer of film and TV series, wonderful things coming up, and we'll talk about some projects. And I was actually saw him on a Uniquely Human podcast with Barry Prezant just the other day. And when I was listening and running across, I thought, I've just got to get in touch with this guy because I resonate so much with the things that he has to say. So thank you so much for being here, Scott.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's such a pleasure and an honor to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of, what got you started. And I read that you got your diagnosis for Asperger's a little bit later in life.
Well, I had difficulty as a boy. I had a speech impediment. I was slow in certain areas. I didn't have a lot of motor skills going on. And at the age of 10, I was staring out at the ceilings, and the teacher took me out of class and thought that I was on drugs. So that was my first misdiagnosis, is that I was taking drugs at the age of 10.
Insane.
And then I was bullied really bad until I was about 14. And it really affected everything in my life, my self-esteem, my self-worth. I didn't have a lot of social skills. I did a lot of masking. I would smile to mask my feelings. My parents didn't know the bullying was going on. And so it was a very painful part of my life. And then I ended up having a substance abuse problem in my early 20s. And then right after that, I was diagnosed with ADHD, or back then they called it ADD.
Yes.
And I didn't really take it seriously. I knew I had difficulty focusing and staying, doing paperwork and doing certain activities. And it wasn't until, I was basically almost 50 years old, I'm 62, where, my daughter said, my youngest daughter, who was diagnosed with ADHD early on in life, said, "Dad, you're autistic and you should look at it." And so I started doing a lot of research, and then I got tested thoroughly by a woman named Linda Geller in New York, and it's just become my life. And I'm learning, as the world is learning, more and more about ADHD, more about autism, more about how the brain operates. And so it's my biggest project in life is to try to discover how I can do better in life, how I can help other people do better in life. And I think so many people are misdiagnosed.
Oh gosh, yes.
Or not diagnosed and wondering what's wrong with them. And it's just, I'm wired differently. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm wired differently, and I have certain superpowers that people don't have, and yet I can't function great in certain buckets either.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you grew up in Minnesota, is that right?
But
What type of, were there a lot back then, a lot of services, or is it mostly just kind of put you into a resource class? If there was anything, right?
I
Then you
was
didn't even get that.
I was I was in the row of slow people. But I did okay in school. I didn't do great. I didn't do poorly, but I had difficulty focusing and I was getting bullied. But, even today, there are no proper services in
Mhm.
schools or
Yeah.
in companies. And so there was zero then, and it was before diagnosing.
Yeah.
And and even today, diagnosing people is very expensive. It's very
Mm,
limited. The tests are outdated. We can do so much better, and that's my
agreed.
focus in life.
I love that. And I absolutely agree with you and resonate with you 100% on that. We can do better. And, with leaders being able to go out and educate and teach the world what autism really looks like instead of this idea that they've had from the past, like
Right.
those things need to change, as has everything else. And we've seen as a nation, as a country, as a world, that we've had to change the way we live. So why would we think that we don't need to change the way we look at other, parts of society and really take a look at those things to change too? So I agree with that diagnosis problem and oversight in so many individuals. And I saw that you had said that too about, a lot of actors and probably people in Hollywood that probably are on the spectrum, especially with their innate abilities to have a photographic memory and really remember things like that. So that's exciting. What do you think kind of was your push or your drive to, kind of leave the coop, the nest, and go out and be independent on your own?
As far as
Just
early
so,
in life, or
yeah, like when you got out of high school, did you go into college? Like what did you do next? What was your next step in kind of leaving home?
well, I was on the US freestyle ski team, so I was traveling the world. And if it wasn't
Amazing.
for sports, skiing specifically, and being an athlete, I wouldn't be where I am today. And it really helped me and saved me. It gave me self-esteem, it gave me self-worth. And
I
in
love
many
that.
ways, I skied over my feelings and I skied over my pain and difficulties
Wow.
in life. So I was able to find something for me. So I really believe for young people to find sports or reading or certain activities that you really are passionate about and excite you
Mhm.
can help tremendously. And if I didn't have that,
Yeah.
I don't know what would have happened to me.
And it's so neat because I'm sure that you've made plenty of great relationships as on that ski team and things like that. And how do you think like your support went as far as, did you feel like you were a part of that, or did you still feel like an outsider? Because that's such a interesting question for a neurodivergent minds.
Well, one thing I want to also bring up is I was diagnosed very early in life as an HSP, highly sensitive person.
Okay.
But I'm very, very emotional and sensitive and feel deeply. And I think socially has been a difficult thing in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have close friends. I do one-on-one, I can relate to people, I can communicate. But when I started in business in my early 20s, I had difficulty making eye contact. I had difficulty focusing. And so I would, people that worked with me, I would stare up at the ceilings and lose focus, and they'd kick me under the table. And so it wasn't until I was really 40 that I started trying to focus, making eye contact, trying to stay engaged. And then little by little, I started learning how to adapt to this world with how I'm wired. And but but I never felt a part of. I didn't feel a part of the
Yeah.
ski. I didn't feel a part of, I did real estate. I didn't feel a part of the Hollywood community.
Yeah.
I still don't. I feel like I'm an outsider
Yeah.
of this whole thing looking in, and I don't feel comfortable going to award dinners and Hollywood parties. It's just, I'd rather be at home,
Yeah, definitely.
So it's been a challenge, but yet I'm okay with it
Yeah.
because I find I can nurture relationships. I have developed long-term relationships in my life. I have learned these skills. And I read a lot. I found something as a boy. I my parents from Minnesota read a lot of books, and I'm that guy that can read books and remember pages, and and it and it's my job,
Yeah,
so I found something in my life that
I
I
love it.
really like and
Mm.
enjoy, and I've turned that into a skill set that's my job,
Yeah,
finding books that I can turn into movies and TV shows.
I love that.
So I'm lucky.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And it's such a great thing to find that interest, nurture those interests, and empower your kids to and I always tell people I love to when they come up against challenges, well, what are their strength sets? Look at their strengths and try to help them in their strength set to struggle with their struggles. You help kind of balance those things out. And I completely agree with that. So when you were getting into Hollywood and things, oh my gosh, I'm sure that was so much pressure on you, a lot of pressure um, to number one, perform and be attention, right? How did you find strategies to deal with that?
Well, I learned early in life to, I studied success.
Mm.
I guess because of the way I'm wired and because of my reading ability, I read everything about how to be successful.
Yeah.
And so I've discovered a path for me to be persistent, to be determined. And that's been what's enabled me to be successful at what I do, is to just never give up.
Yeah.
And it is difficult. I look at it today and I go, it's amazing that I can have that focus and determination and never give up. And that's my strength. And that weakness I have is I never give up.
Right? Isn't that the truth?
So with it go a lot of, it's a lot of pain,
Yeah,
for
definitely.
me, being on the spectrum, and it can be depressing, it can be difficult, it can be challenging, and communicating with a lot of different people that
Mm.
I'm not quite gelling with. So
Definitely. And you said that your daughter had kind of pushed you to get that diagnosis. So once you got that, what kind of support did you find from your family?
well, you know when I did get tested and when I really started getting into it, she interviewed my therapist tester, interviewed a lot of people in my life, and I was unaware of how I lived. I was
Okay.
unaware of how I behaved. I was unaware of how I affected other people.
Hmm.
So, you know, I have 3 grown children, and because I speak very monotone, I've had to work on that. I speak loudly, I've had to work on that. So my children always thought I was yelling at them,
Right.
when I wasn't, in
Yeah.
my, but because of the not being aware of certain behaviors,
Mhm.
it was really hard to look at that and see how it affected my children
Mm.
or other people or business. People, why are you yelling? In I'm not yelling,
Yeah.
even
Ah,
though
interesting.
So being aware of through the eyes of other people
Mm.
and being open to it and starting to adjust where I could, and also realizing, hey, this is me and I'm unique and you're unique and this is how we function.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there comes an acceptance to it also.
Definitely. Do you share that diagnosis with people you're going into work with so that they can have kind of I guess maybe it's might be a situational thing, right? You may find some people you might want to, or you don't at all.
Well, when I had a issue with drugs and alcohol early in life, I was very transparent about it. And I have become very transparent about it. There's a lot of shame and stigma to both having ADHD and autism.
Yeah.
There's a tremendous amount of, like, everybody will say they're ADHD, but they don't really understand what it is.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand autism, which is shocking to me. And there's a lot of shame and stigma.
Yeah.
And 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 I'm trying to break those barriers for other people and children that they're just wired differently and they have other, powers, and they're just, we're all unique and we're all emotional beings, and it's
Mm.
okay.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, that's
When you read, I'm sure you read Uniquely Human, obviously, because you and Barry connected. What did you think of that take of it? And I know there's some other great diverse books out there. What are you? I mean, I completely agree. Like we need to treat people as humans and work on that level of our acceptance and kindness towards others.
well, Barry's Prezan is just a beautiful human
Really,
being,
though, yeah.
and what he's doing to help us is tremendous. And I read the
Mm.
book and I just, like, I cried.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and so many people have difficulties. We all have different levels of, our neurodiversity. So it's that understanding of
Mm.
it, and the meltdowns and all of these things that occur with us of processing feelings. I guess the biggest thing I did when I discovered I was autistic is I jumped into feelings,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to understand and identify my feelings and understand them and be able to process them and to express them. So there's wasn't a lot of books actually
Yeah.
on feelings or emotions, because we're taught not to feel. Don't
Yeah.
don't
Oh,
cry, don't laugh,
awesome.
don't get mad, don't get overly excited, calm down, don't feel that way. So we're taught not to feel.
Mm.
And I ended up giving a talk at the Arizona State University Film School, and I made it a talk about feelings,
Mm.
and it's become, they asked me to teach a course on it. So I teach a course to everybody. It's
Wow.
for neurodiversity
Yeah.
for everybody, and it's really helped me tremendously.
Mm.
And I work with kids that are on the spectrum to understand their feelings. Look, I'm never going to get an A+ in how to express feelings because of my wiring and processing, but I have an understanding of it.
I love that.
And I want to help other people be able to, even neurotypical people,
Mm.
because there is no neurotypical in my mind. We
Yeah.
all have our different things in life. So
Yeah. I agree. I think that diversity is what makes us who we are as people. And I choose to see the beauty in, especially with my family and autism, And I celebrate autism. When our son was diagnosed very early at 16 months, it was 5 years later that I sat his dad down and said, "This is definitely looking like you, sir," and I gave him his checklist of Asperger's, and he said, "That's me, that's me." And now he embraces it. And then our daughter was just diagnosed maybe 4 weeks ago, and she's 9. And now we're learning, we had kind of briefly talked about what autism looks like in girls and how easily it's overlooked because of the fascinating skill sets that they can have as such little people. And it's just amazing. And my husband and I said, should we throw her a party? Like, should we make cake and like welcome her into this autism? Because it made her feel so much closer to her brother and her dad. And it's so special. Yeah, it's so special. Wow, you got me all tears here, Scott. And I thought I'd be crying over Las Vegas. We haven't talked about that yet, sir. But yeah. I think that that's really great that we can take something that the world sees, like you said, as a stigma, and we can celebrate it and say, no, you are not looking at the beauty of this. You are looking at it backwards, upside down, whatever direction you're looking.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that's the beauty of this, is that, we can love each other.
Yeah.
And I find that people on the spectrum feel more. That's one of there's so much misinformation.
So much.
And so, that we have no empathy. We have too much empathy.
Yes.
We
Agreed.
feel too much. And some can't process it because it's happening so fast. And so it looks like frustration and anger and upset, but it's really boiling up inside and not being able to, process and express those feelings.
Definitely.
And so I want to help people be able to understand that and to love them when, some of these children that I work with having meltdowns, and neurotypical kids have meltdowns. Like, we all have difficulty with feelings. So I think a lot of my process of life with autism and ADHD is really understanding these feelings and being able to be aware of how I am.
Yeah.
And that awareness has helped me tremendously. And I don't believe in medication for ADHD like Adderall and some. Of course, we need, certain people on the spectrum. Autism needs certain medications, but there are medications that are not solving the problem.
Yes.
They're causing more problems. So I don't think that that's the solution. Love is the solution. Understanding, compassion, and being able to communicate with somebody that's on the spectrum. So it's, I'm never going to be normal. I'm never going to behave the way, I should, have a 9-to-5 job. I've never had a job in my life.
Amen. Thank you for saying so. Boy, have I gotten flack for that for my whole life. Where's the city job? Just go get a city job. Yeah. That's not my gig.
And the sad part about it is that that's what a lot of these, groups are trying to do. Oh, we're going to train you to go get a job, or we're going to, make you into a normal. I'm not. You're not going to make me fit into a hole. And it breaks my heart that so many people that have what I have struggle in their lives, and they're homeless and they're penniless and they've broken relationships, and it's because of this. And so there needs to be less rigid, more open, more understanding, more research on doing better. And do so much better.
Absolutely. Oh, I 100% agree with that. What do you think? And this is kind of, off topic a little bit, but sleeping. I don't know. I just had this idea. Like, what do you have any sleeping problems? I mean, there's so many in our family. It's like somebody's asleep usually at 1 hour of the day. Most of it's like there's one of the four people asleep. I'm the normal 9 to 6 sleeper, but my other family members, they go on some wild sleep excursions.
I'm blessed that I
Trained sleeper.
sleep well, and
Good.
I'm very, very lucky because so
Yeah.
many people don't. But
So many people. Yeah.
yeah,
And what we've done in our life, and like you said, it does not look normal to people. It looks strange, and they don't understand it, and they don't get why I would let my child go to sleep at any time of day. It's because his biological needs are more important to me than society's timeframes. And I give my child that space and that ability to have that. Yeah.
yeah,
It's so important. And that comes right along with that, acting with love and being with, treating your family with love. Looks like our little visitor is trying to come in and say hello, in fact. Oh, hello, DJ.
Hello.
hey DJ,
DJ, here, I'm going to put these on so you can say hello. We'll
I
turn
thought
this-
it was 9:28 p.m.
I don't think so. It's 3:28. You say hi, Scott.
Hi,
I'm
Scott.
good. How are you?
What is a question you love to ask people when you meet them to find out something special about their element?
How old are you?
62.
What is his element?
Samarium.
Samarium. Well, that sounds neat. Do you want to say goodbye?
Goodbye.
Nice meeting you.
Oh, goodness. Thank you. Thank you for participating in that chemistry experiment that we do. That's his. He loves to ask people their age so he can tell them their element on the periodic table, which he has a blanket and a window covering, and he has periodic tables all over the place. Special interests, right?
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you so much for letting him come in and say hello. This, the great thing about me doing podcasting is that it's opened up a whole new way for him to communicate and way for him to be social. And
Yeah.
I love that he gets excited and wants to come in and see who his mom's talking to and say hello to them. It's so special that he wants to be a part of it. So, and he has recorded his own little podcast before. I'll have to send you that link so that you can see that.
I love it.
Yeah, it was cute. Let's talk about your documentary that you're working on. Spectrum, is that the name of it? Yeah, let's talk about that and tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was doing another TV show about the pandemic, and that show briefly got shut down by the pandemic. So I've just started resuming
Crazy.
the new show about Spectrum because it's with the biggest researchers and scientists in the world and therapists about autism
Yeah,
and giving correct
I
information
love that.
because there's so much misinformation about how to treat it, how to where it comes from, all this myth about it being vaccines and food,
Cold mothers or refrigerator mothers. Remember that? 1940s or
So-
something.
there's we live in 2000, we're coming into 2022. We know more about the brain, we know about mapping the brain, understanding, we can detect some of these spectrum issues, we
Yeah.
can do better. Some of these groups, I'm not a big fan of a lot of autism groups because they try to make everybody behave a certain way.
Yeah.
We're all different. That's why I like Barry. We're all unique.
Yep.
Your son is going to process information much faster than me or another child. And so we need to create better education. We need to have
Certainly.
better programs. We
Yeah.
need to have better counseling. We need to have counselors and psychologists and psychiatrists understand it from a current standpoint and treat it not with medication, not with here's a pill, go away and think that lives are going to change. They're not. So there's so much we can do. So I want to get the right information out with the right people and have better lives. Look, I'm never going to be perfect, but I have a much better understanding of me, my condition, and it's not a disorder. I don't like the word disorder.
I hate that word.
I don't, first of all, who's giving that diagnosis? That person has a disorder.
I love it.
By telling people that there's something wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm wired differently. Other people have genetic heart conditions, or they have all sorts of. So I have
a different working brain.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that you said that.
Somebody on an interview asked me if you could go back and change this and not have this, would you do it? And I said, no.
Yeah.
I would not want to change this. I do believe that if I would have known about this as a teenager, it would have made certain things in my life easier.
Yeah.
Probably better. I definitely would not have had a substance abuse problem. And I think there's a lot of people with substance abuse problems that the underlying condition is ADHD or autism.
So closely related. Yeah.
So
they're just like linked up to elbow and elbows, aren't they?
So let's deal with these underlying and deal with that. So
100%. No, I agree. And I always tell, my families that I work with and things, when you are coming oh, how do I deal with this person's behaviors? You look at their human needs. What are they trying to tell you? Why are they freaking out? Because, with our son, when, we noticed very early on that with a lot of foods, there was a lot of food aversions. And it wasn't really until my complete understanding of it was wrapped around when my husband was also diagnosed, and I know his food aversions, and I have to, I have to make accommodations for those types of things. And so when I was able to give that the right kind of perspective to then look at my son and say, okay, these things are what affected my husband. And we were able to talk about his childhood and things that went horribly wrong, like the kind of ways you said, juvenile detention systems, things like that, where he did most of his growing up because of the lack of education and knowledge about autism, and that he, was just completely overlooked in that sense. And so, it's going to be an interesting future, hopefully. Do you think that we will be able to get them to change the language of these types of things? Good.
Yeah, I do. And I think, using these old
negative
models are absolutely disgusting.
Yeah. It doesn't empower our kids to tell them that they are disordered or deficited or anything like that.
Or given strong medications and put away in a corner, or pushed away from society, and they live on the streets and they go into prisons and we can do way much better.
Yeah, we can.
There's a lot of brilliant minds in penitentiaries and on the streets that this was their issue, and the families didn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And they were, pushed out of society. And it's something that I really want to focus on in my life.
Definitely.
So that's my mission.
I love that. I'm so grateful to have you on today and to have this discussion. And most definitely, I'm just really grateful to have made this connection with you, and know that we have, like minds thinking in different places of the country, making moves, trying to teach all of those around us. So it's just absolutely exciting to have you on today to talk about this kind of stuff. So let's talk about some autism related things that are exciting still, because I have to give you a hard time about Las Vegas, like I brought up earlier. When I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how heartbroken I was when I never found out if Delinda and Danny's baby was going to be okay. I remember my friend and I just being like, no, this can't be it. Oh, that is so funny. And what about Penelope? When I've watched that movie with my daughters, both of my daughters, we love that movie. Do you think that like you maybe wanted to shine a light on differences? That when I was reading about that, I thought, oh my gosh, that's so amazing.
Well, I've done it my whole career.
Yeah.
My big movie was called The Human Stain, and it was
Yes.
somebody that was light-skinned African American that was able to get by as a Caucasian to have a more privileged life, and how that life turned, and then gets fired from his job for making a racial slur. Penelope was definitely something that I related to, self-esteem and somebody
Yeah.
being different. Station 11, which is a show that's on HBO Max now, is probably my favorite and most successful project.
I
It's
love
about
that.
connection.
Yeah.
It's about connecting with people in horrific situations and making the best of it. So that also is something.
Yeah.
So yes, they always relate to me on a deep level, and I'm doing a project called The Psychology of Stupidity, which is about a therapist that treats stupidity and the absurdity of treatments, and so I'm here to do meaningful things, be a meaningful
Absolutely.
human, and use this gift I have and share it with the rest of the world. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing this time with me today. It's been such a pleasure. And I know that we'll be in contact in the future. So we'll keep in touch and check on how things are going. And we'll be talking to you soon. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you so much.